Hey there, welcome to the CMMC Compliance Guide Podcast. I'm Stacy.
And I'm Brooke.
From Justice IT Consulting, where we help businesses like yours navigate CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. We're hired guns getting companies fast-tracked to compliance, but today we're here to give you all the secrets for free, so if you want to tackle it yourself, you're equipped to do so. Let's dive into today's episode and keep your business on track. Today, we're talking about something that surprises a lot of defense contractors once they start the CMMC process. Most companies assume CMMC is mainly a cybersecurity project. Just install some security tools, write a few policies, and you're ready for an assessment. But in reality, the technical controls are only part of the equation. For small and mid-sized contractors, the biggest challenge is actually the operational workload behind compliance. Documentation, training, evidence collection, asset management, vendor oversight, and continuous monitoring can consume thousands of labor hours every year. So today, we're going to break down what that hidden workload actually looks like and why so many companies underestimate it. All right, Brooke, so hopping into it, a lot of companies approach CMMC like it's an IT upgrade. Why does that approach usually fall short with CMMC?
The IT part of it, the cybersecurity part of it is definitely part of it, and that's what it's all kind of built around, except that it's really all built around the business processes, and you've got to write down what you do, how you're doing it, then you've got to actually do what you say you're doing, and then you have to be able to prove that you're doing what you say you're doing, right? So really, it's a whole business process and documentation for your network. It's easy to throw some security tools in there and say, "Yep, we're good." In reality, the technical controls just by themselves, the technical controls are really not that hard to get put in place, but it's everything else along with that. Is the product compliant, or can you make it compliant? How are you going to do the logging? How are you going to do continuous monitoring? The whole nine yards. So really, it's about business process and how you say you're going to do everything and how you can prove that.
So you briefly mentioned documentation. Since that's another area where expectations don't usually match reality, can you go into what role documentation plays with a system security plan in CMMC?
Sure. So your system security plan, it tells your story about how you are fulfilling all the controls. Really, most people, you're looking at a 200-300 page, or 100 to 200, 300 page SSP. And I say that really because you want to address the assessors are going to assess you based on each assessment objective and the controls. They're not going to just ask you overall about the control. They're going to ask you about each assessment objective. And if you meet each of those assessment objectives, then the control is met, right? So it could be one objective, or it could be 7 objectives. There's for whichever control it is. So you need to. So what you do in your SSP, most people do. You should do is write out how you meet each of those assessment objectives, right? However you break that out, however you do that. But a lot of GRC tools will allow you to write a control statement and then a statement for each of the assessment objectives, which is the way you should do it. So that SSP really tells a really good overall story. Your policies and your plans and procedures say, this is how I say I'm going to do it, right? And your system security plan says, here's some details that show you what we're doing to fulfill those controls. And then you have all your proof and evidence and everything else to show you're doing what you're doing, along with the continuous monitoring and all that kind of fun stuff.
Another area that seems to surprise contractors is asset management and scoping. Why is that process so complicated?
Well, a lot of people, asset management, well, shoot, I'll just spit out a list of Active Directory users and computers, and we got it right there. It's really not how it works. Mm-hmm. You've got to list out every user, every service account or process in your, anything that runs automatically, right? process, service account, all that kind of fun stuff. Anyway, so a user, process, or a devices, any device that connects to that network has to be listed, right? And so you've got to list all those out. You've got to categorize all of them and say, this is a COI asset. This is a security protection asset. This is out of scope. This is a contractor risk managed asset. Whatever it may be, you've got to list out what kind of assets those are, and yes, the people too, because people are assets. So the users have to be listed. Who's in scope, who's out of scope, who's CUI, all that kind of fun stuff. So it's an undertaking much larger than just spitting out a CSV of users and computers.
Another area that companies often underestimate is training. Why does CMMC put so much emphasis on workforce education?
Well, for the same reason that everybody should, really. But, there's your cybersecurity training you're supposed to go through, how to handle your basic cybersecurity. There's your insider threat awareness that it specifically calls out. And then there's, how to handle CUI. But then the people that have security functions, how are they trained, right? What do they do? So it's not just your basic cybersecurity training, and that's it. So it's anybody that has a security function. So for instance, we're an MSP, so we would have that security function. How do you train those employees? And you have to lay out a plan. A lot of people, a lot of companies, there's not a specific laid out plan, and you've got to figure something out. It doesn't mean that you have to say this position is going to have X, Y, and Z, and this position is going to have 1, 2, 3. It can, and some of that can be part of it, but you can also, say this is. It would list out how you're going to address it. For instance, maybe you talk with the employees and you have some suggested training, and then you firm up a training schedule with that employee at the beginning of the year in their employee review or something like that, and you go over gaps that they need to study. That should work as well. But they do need to have training beyond. Everybody has to have the cybersecurity training, how to handle CUI and insider threat awareness training. But then don't forget your IT department or whoever is your security personnel, cybersecurity personnel that has. Let me back up. Has a security function. They have to take some sort of training to address their security function.
So hopping into evidence, that's something we hear a lot about during assessments.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Why is evidence collection such a big part of the process as a whole?
Well, that's the whole. You have to prove what you're doing. you have to prove you're doing what you say you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, the more evidence you have in for an assessment to show how you're addressing all this stuff, the better. The more if it's unrelated evidence, it doesn't really matter, of course. But the more evidence you have in there to show what you're doing, and the different aspects of whatever it may be. Think audit logging, for instance. The more evidence you have in there, the better. You have that serve two functions really. The assessor can see all these things, and they might ask you to go, show you something. If it matches the document or the evidence, the artifacts you put in, they're probably okay with it, especially if everything that you show them matches and everything's good. They'll ask you fewer questions, most likely. That's not a given, but that's most likely. The other thing it helps, what I can tell you, is when you're going through an assessment, you're kind of uptight and worried and maybe not worried, but on edge a little bit, and sometimes you just can't remember where in the world to go to click on something to find it. And if you have that screenshot there, you can go, oh yeah, I know where that's at. And you can go find it and show it to them. So it serves two purposes there. It does help out when you're in an assessment trying to find those things. One other thing that I ran across that I've seen a few places, and I just saw something about it this morning and it reminded me, but on the evidence collection part, there's some agentic AI out there that you can train to go collect evidence for you, and do that on an ongoing basis, and stick it in there to show that you have that you're doing this right, and so you don't have to go manually do that. That's all great. That's wonderful. Be great when we can automate everything, But then again, AI taking over the world is, it's probably it's a little concerning, right? So the first thing I worry about there is security. You've got to be very careful. Make sure it's whatever you do with AI is secure and compliant. But then the other thing is applicability. You can't just 100% trust the AI to just do what it's going to do. Mm-hmm. Now, one of those that's specifically tailor-made and trained for evidence collection for CMMC is probably a little better than your generic AI that gets more things. They get some things wrong, right? It's AI; it'll still get some things wrong. So I don't know where I fall on that. Well, I do know where I fall on it. I fall on the I'm skeptical right now side.
Yeah.
And we're going to hold that at arm's length. But point is, there's some of those tools out there, and they may be useful. They may be able to help. So look into those. Those can help you absolutely with some continuous monitoring and evidence gathering. Again, with the caveat that myself, we're going to hold that at arm's length until we have time to really investigate really well. So
it's actually really interesting.
It is.
Have it hallucinate your evidence. That might not be the best. All right, Brooke. Once companies achieve compliance, are they finished with the work?
Oh, absolutely. You can just put it up and never think about it again. No, just kidding. Not really. Please don't take that clip and
Run with
out of context. So, no, it is not over. It's the hard part. Once you've gotten through your assessment, I'd say the hard part is over because you've got that certification. You're good, but it is a continuous. It is CMMC and NIST 800-171 are built for ongoing management, right? They're not built to, write some policies and stick them up on the shelf, like people do for other compliance standards. We'll just say that. You've got to continuously gather evidence. You've got to document changes to the network, to the whatever it may be. You've got to document changes. If do you never ever bring on any more employees? Do you never ever lose employees? That's a simple thing you need to document those things. How did you onboard them? How did you give them access? How did you, so those are the things that you're going to want to document and keep of how you did it and that you followed your policies.
Let's chat about the supply chain for a second. How does CMMC affect subcontractors?
It does affect them. So Flowdown has always been there, but they've specifically called it out and they keep talking about it. So CUI Flowdown rules are a real thing, right? Anything that is performed, and I have to go back and look at the statement, but anything that is performed, created, or held in the performance of that contract for the government is in scope and can be considered CUI. If it's marked CUI and you make you get a drawing or some specs and you make a drawing of that, or you break it down into smaller parts, then that's very likely going to be CUI. If you send it off to a subcontractor to finish a part out or do something to, or make something to sell to you or whatever it may be, that CUI flows down to that subcontractor, and you have to do your due diligence to make sure that they meet the same for that contract, whatever it is, that they meet the same CMMC level requirements you have to meet. Right. Same thing. The big primes are doing that. They have contracts and they want you to be same level they are for that contract. They have a bunch of contracts, I know, and subcontractors work on more than one contract at a time. I know that. And some of them, most of them, a lot of them out there, get POs to do things, so I get all that. But if you're a subcontractor, that controlled unclassified information comes to you, then you have to meet those controls. And then if that same or related CUI flows down to one of your subcontractors, then that flow down goes down to them as well, and they have to be compliant. And you're responsible to make sure that they are compliant. And that can be a questionnaire. That can be, hey, show me your certification, whatever that contract requires. You're going to have to make sure you have some sort of process in place to CYA. You got to make sure that you're good to go and that you've done your due diligence. Now, if they've lied about a bunch of stuff, there's, it's not necessarily your duty to go investigate and make sure they're not lying or anything like that. Then again, if you think they might be, I would walk back and, drop that right there. But in any case, the Flowdown is a real thing. It does affect contractors, subcontractors, subs of subs, subs of subs of subs. We get asked this question all the time. It's a big problem in manufacturing, but it's also a gigantic problem in construction. So, they're like, we have some clients that said, if we have to flow down these requirements to our subcontractors, we won't have any subcontractors to use. We can't get Jose, the concrete guy, to come out here and pour any concrete. Well, you got to figure out, if there's something that is going down to that subcontractor, is it an off the shelf product, or is it something that's that may not be off the shelf? Is it special concrete, or is it, what is it, right? So if it's truly an off the shelf product, you may be off the hook. But as far as flow down, but that is that's not an easy blanket thing to say.
Yeah, so, don't hold your breath on it.
Exactly. I would err on the side of caution, rather than not. So, but that flow down is a real thing, and they want everybody to make sure that they're following that.
Well, thank you, Brooke, for providing your insight. If you have questions about what we covered, reach out to us. We're here to help fast track your compliance journey. Text, email, or call in your questions, and we'll answer them for free here on the podcast. You can find our contact information at CMMCComplianceGuide.com. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay compliant, stay secure, and make sure to subscribe.